Good afternoon, Professor. This is Dane Wysong. I guess I'm choosing to do the multimedia approach to blogging right here off the bat. And I'll try to be as thorough as possible in this format and cover all the questions from the blog guidelines. So I'll start with who are your learners? My personal plan is to return home to Northwood High School and teach there as kind of a thank you. We're a way to serve the community who previously believed in me and served me because without community support, I don't believe I'd be where I am today. Specifically, though, I'm aware that students come from a variety of backgrounds, very culturally diverse. Um, and, you know, I think the question of who are my learners or who will they be, that's a question I think it changes from class to class, even day to day, class period to class period, and certainly year to year. But I hope and pray that I will do my best to be sensitive to all cultures and things of that nature. Try to understand the context from which they come from to better reach them. Um, what should I consider about my learners as I plan and design learning opportunities and tools? And also tied together was the question of what are some general implications of your students on your approach to teaching? In general, I believe that teachers must consider the psychology of their students, not only what type of learners they are in terms of Gardner's learning styles, but also in terms of motivations, extrinsic or intrinsic, as our textbook discussed. Um, the book stated that intrinsic learners theoretically are motivated by themselves. They will learn regardless of circumstance, and extrinsic learners certainly need that reward or that carrot dangled in front of them until the end of the course when they can complete it and feel accomplished. Um, but I believe personally that tying academic content, and I believe the book backs this up, several areas it discusses context, and we'll get into a bit more of that in a second. But I do believe that tying academic content to the real world helps students see the purpose of their education, especially at the secondary level. Students at that level become very analytical and really start to ask the question why. I've done so my whole life and oftentimes was looked down upon as if I was being anti-authority or disrespectful simply by inquiring for someone's reasoning. And so I certainly believe that showing the moves in a classroom and contextualizing things into the culture and into the lifestyle that students that we will approach will live is the best, most effective way to teach. Because in context, um, if we're able to, first of all, contextualize the material to a certain culture or a certain viewpoint, um, they have a basis. They have a understanding. The book does recommend that you don't necessarily bore people with the history of, I believe it was some form of math that it references in the book, but it talks about how some of that background can be cumbersome. But I believe if it's applied well, it can serve as a solid base of context as far as where the material comes from. And the bridge between the material and the lives of the students is the key and the tricky part, I guess, in my opinion. Um, we need, as teachers, to contextualize our conversations in the classroom to the lives of our students. Again, that's determinant of wherever we wind up teaching. Um, but we need to be mindful of where they come from, what does motivate them, uh, and how can we, as teachers, tie in our lessons. Especially, I'm an English education major, so I'll probably use prompts that come from controversial topics of the day. I'm not sure where politics will be in 5 years, or even religious conversations when that's appropriate, or anything like that. Um, but I hope that I'll be allowed to use some of those things because that's what's interesting, and that's what will tie to students' lives. Oftentimes, like I said, the question of why is asked and it's not answered, and I dedicate as a teacher to answer that question. Also, I believe that from an English education perspective, that there are plenty of reasons that learning the English language at a high level, as we do in the American education system, is a good thing. I believe that not only does it help people make creative connections in their brain that will later on, regardless of career, help them problem solve, but also being well spoken is an immense skill within the job field, and I will not hesitate to show my students that I believe that. Um, Again, contextualizing our material to their world is so key. So that's really the main point there. And lastly, I also learned that emotions will affect motivations as well, and sometimes I think that's overlooked. It's just like, as if students are in a vacuum. And then finally, two new concepts. Is that the book stated that the outcome or effectiveness of a lesson is not determined by a teacher's skill, but by students' ability. One, I believe that sometimes there are subpar teachers, and the outcome or effectiveness will be determined by their lack of skill, but also students' motivation, not so much ability. I know a lot of students who are really intelligent who just simply didn't do well in school because they didn't care. And finally, talking to students to understand their learning process and motivation. That concept seems very obvious, but I was glad to see a textbook just encourage openness and transparency between teacher and student. Thank you.